that, I welcome our keynote speaker from this morning. We're very honored that he's able to be part of our discussion this afternoon, Mr. T.V. Mohandas Pai.
Thank you very much. Gandhiji made a remarkable statement among the many statements he made. He said, "The world has enough for everybody's need, not everybody's greed." And today, when climate change is a reality, when the world is together and we can't escape, because unlike the Carpenter's song, you can't stop the world and get off. You are here for good. Nobody can escape the consequences of excess consumption but one society and its impact on the whole world. So if you have to live together on this planet, we need to necessarily not consume more than what are the bare necessities. The United States, with 5% of the world's population, consumes 25% of the world's resources. And all of us on this planet consume 1.5 times the world's ability to renew itself and its resources every single year. So there is an excessive consumption in some part of the world and very deficient in other parts of the world. In many parts of the world, we see people dying of hunger. We see people starving. We see people having no water. We see people having no toilet. We see people cursing that they are even born. In other parts of the world, we have the challenge of obesity. 35–40% of people are becoming obese. You have the challenges of health diseases caused by obesity, overeating. You have huge wastage, landfills, and all these challenges. How can we bridge this gap? What do we need to do to make sure that there is some amount of equality and egalitarianism in this world? To do this, we have to rediscover ourselves. What are we? We are human beings. As human beings, we have something which animals don't have or do have, but we have in a larger measure, and that is compassion, sensitivity, empathy, like my colleague said, an ability to understand others, an ability to share, an ability to give, an ability to participate. And if you look at human history, throughout history there have been great men and women who have given up themselves so that others could prosper, who have given up themselves voluntarily so that others could do well. And it happens every time. A mother who eats one meal less so that a child could go to school. A teacher who stays back and teaches the last child. A woman who looks at a starving child and sacrifices a meal. And in our culture in India, this was well ingrained. Our forefathers taught us that we as a society have an obligation to foster knowledge and to keep alive our traditions. So, in our history we find many stories where many learned men were told to pursue knowledge, go after the pursuit of knowledge without looking after mental well-being. And the communities were supposed to look after them. So the Buddha used to walk on the streets with his begging bowl, go to a household, show his begging bowl, Om Bhikshan Dehi. It is very symbolic why he did that. He was a prince. He was seeking something superior, not for himself, but for all of us. And he went to a household, and the woman of the household cooked the food, did not eat a single morsel, waited for him to come and gave him food first before she ate herself or fed her children. So there was a tradition. And this tradition was a symbiotic relationship between people, because by making sure that everybody's well-being is taken care of, our well-being is taken care of. So we are all linked together in this world. So giving to somebody else is not charity, is not philanthropy, it's an obligation. It's an obligation. We have to give. Why do you have to give? Because we have received in abundance. And I want to tell you a personal story. My father used to tell me that one day I'm going to carry him on my shoulders. I never understood what it was till he died. Then I took him to the cremation yard and carried him on my shoulder. I bid him goodbye. And I stood there and I understood. I'm part of a long chain of people who have been there before me. I'm the result of the sacrifice that they have made. All their dreams is in me. And I symbolize their dreams, their aspirations. And I have to pass it on. I can't treat up my obligation. I'm not an individual who's free to do what he wants and go seek whatever pleasure he wants. But I have to pass it on. I have an obligation and I have to do my duty. But the concept of duty, which is so enshrined in our culture, and all this has a very, very deep meaning for us. Because without all this, we cease to be human beings, we cease to be a community, we cease to be a society. We are not self-sustaining individuals. We need community, we need to be with people. And that's why my appeal to you is, look at giving as an obligation, not as a charity, not as a philanthropy, not something you do because you want to look good, you want to get a face in the newspaper, or you want to feel good about it. You do it because you have an obligation and you have to discharge that obligation and you have a duty. And how do you discharge this duty? It can be done in many ways. It's not necessary you have money or give away money. The biggest thing you can give is your time. Because the time is finite. Time is not with everybody. And to make time in a busy day and give your time to spend with somebody else is the greatest gift that you can ever give. Is the greatest gift you can give yourself. Second, of course, is to give your skills. All of us are educated. Many of us are recipients of a public education where we are not paid any money or any fees. Others are paid for it. And we can give our skills, our ability to do something very unique to organizations or to others. Then, of course, we can give money. Money is ultimately the accumulated surplus labor that we have. Money comes out of labor. Some people it comes out of inheritance. For most of us it comes out of own labor. And it's an accumulator of labor. Some of us are good at making money. Some of us are great positions. Maybe we should work harder, work 12, 14 hours a day, make more money and give it away. And the act of giving it away is the greatest act that you can have. Like our friend said here, is an act of great joy. Because you see joy. But when giving away, please remember, the person who takes is doing you a favor. When the householder gives the food to the Buddha, she is not doing Buddha a favor. The Buddha is doing her a favor by accepting her offering. Because by accepting her offering, he ennobles her. He ennobles her and makes her something else. So giving is an act which is full of pathos, which is full of emotion, which is full of something else. And therefore, somebody taking something from you should be an act of gratefulness for you, should be an act of humility for you as a giver. I went through a very remarkable time in my life. It was way back in 1999 when I had been very successful. I was the CFO of Infosys, the best CFO in India. I set standards, the world was at my feet. I was at TV every other day, the investors loved me. But I had a strange emptiness in my life. I felt, what am I going to do with my life? I'm 41 then. And what do I do for the rest of my life? Maybe like Clinton after he laid on his presidency a second time. What do you do with the life you're successful when you're young? So I said I need to have a cause which is so large that I'll spend my whole life fulfilling the cause, yet not so large that I will see success and get encouraged. And I used to go to the ISKCON temple in Bangalore. And I had gone there once when they're building the temple just to see what is happening. And remarkably, when I went there, they told me there's something called a Sudama Seva. In Krishna's life, you hear about his colleague Sudama. Sudama was a poor Brahmin boy. He was Krishna's colleague in school or whatever they went, the Padashala. And after that, Krishna went to Dwarka and became the king. Sudama went back to his village, he got married and he was very poor. And his wife used to tell him, look, your classmate is so rich, you must go meet him. And he could not have the heart to go meet his classmate and ask for anything. But she finally forced him and he went and tried to meet Krishna. and she gave him some pova to carry with him. So here was this boy, young man, with torn clothes, walking in the hot sun, coming to the palace of the great king. And he met the Dwarapal and told him that he wants to meet the king. And he said, "Who are you?" "I'm the king's classmate." "Ha ha ha, you're the classmate." He made him wait. And suddenly, Krishna felt that somebody is coming, and he told them, "If somebody is coming to see me, get them inside." So here comes this person in tattered clothes, walking up, dirty, up to the throne. And Krishna walks down, washes his feet, welcomes him, puts him next to him, and tells him, "My sister-in-law has sent something for me, give it to me." He is very shy to give it because it is poor, it's nothing. And here is a king. He takes it from him and eats it with gusto. Then he makes him stay in his palace. And Sudama never asks Krishna anything because he's so hesitant to ask. Then finally he goes back and he's very dejected. What will I tell my wife? My wife sent it. So when he come to his house, I think the story goes that he suddenly saw a palace where his house was. He suddenly saw his wife full of jewels. And suddenly when he came there, she said, "Don't you know what happened? Somebody came and built my house and did this." And why am I saying this? I'm saying this because the joy of giving which Sudama gave Krishna was so enormous that in return he got all the wealth of the world. Because for Krishna, his classmates' giving was much more important than anything else. So they had a Sudama Seva where we had to pay 1 rupee or 5 rupees a day for the temple. So I said, "I'll pay 5 rupees. I had no money those days. So I paid 5 rupees, and one day in 2000, I suddenly felt I must go to the temple because I had not paid money for 2 or 3 years. So I went to the temple and I told my friend, "I want to meet the head of the temple." And he said, "Come there." And I went round, I could not meet the head of the temple, and I was going out. And suddenly something happened. Somebody called my name. And I looked around and saw a person recognized and told him, he said, "Why have you come here?" "I come here to meet Madhu Pandit." He said, "Come, I'll take him to him." And I met him. And this gentleman is from the IIT. He's become a devotee. And he has built the temple, spending 35 crore rupees. 35 crore rupees is a lot of money in India. And a huge temple. And I told him, "You build this temple, now you got to do something else." He asked me, "What should I do?" I thought a while and said, "Why don't you run a midday meal program for children? Children are hungry." Because at that time, India had 50 million children who were not in school. 50 million. We have won the great ovarian lottery. I call it the ovarian lottery because we have been born to good families. Our parents struggled for us. We were lucky to be born there. We could have been the child on the street, which puts out his hand and begs for money. We could have been the cripple on the street, which has been born to families who can't look after them, yet we have been lucky. So we won the great ovarian lottery. So I said, "Why don't you do a midday meal?" He said, "What is this midday meal?" I told him the story of MGR. There was a remarkable chief minister in the southern state of Tamil Nadu in India. He became a film actor. When he became the chief minister of the state, he called all his bureaucrats and told them that, "Look, I want to have a midday meal for children." I said, "Midday meal for children? What is that?" Then they said, "Look, there's no money. It's all right. We have to tax and get money. The World Bank will not approve." What has the World Bank got to do with it? And then he said non-plan expenditure. They got something called plan and non-plan, the stupid concept. Then for 6 months they stalled him, till one day he called all of them for lunch, gave them a feast, threw open the doors of his house, called the street urchins in, and the street urchins came in, fell on the food, and ate the juta food. Then he told them, "If you don't sign the file today, all of you are transferred to Ramnathpuram or wherever, Timbuktu, wherever they go." They all signed the file, and 20 years later, children were 2 inches taller, 10 pounds heavier. Infant mortality rate had come down, female mortality rate had come down, literacy rate had gone up, the state was transformed. And MJR was in New York in a hospital, a vegetable in coma, and there was an election. And women came out in droves, voted for him. Because for a woman, a person who feeds a hungry child is the most important person next to God. And they made temples out of him. They worshipped him in the temple. It's a remarkable story because MGR felt hunger as a child. How many of you have felt hunger? How many of you have gone hungry for 3 or 4 days? You should not eat for a week and feel hunger with no hope of food. Then you understand what it means. So he did that. So he said, "Why don't you feed?" He said, "Okay, but I want something from you." He said, "What do you want?" "I want 2 vehicles. I said, "Okay, I'll give you 2 vehicles. We started feeding 1,500 children. And then it worked well. Then we said we'll raise money, and we went to some American India Foundation. They gave us some money. We went to 30,000. And they got scared. They said 30,000, put in an organization, process, blah, blah, blah. You can't do this, blah, blah, blah. We're going to stop all the grants. So we all got together and said, what do we do now? We're feeding 30,000 people. We don't have a corpus. We can't do anything. Then we decided, so long as there's a hungry child, we will feed the child. To hell with everything else. We had no corpus. We said a corpus is capitalization of misery. Because misery exists today. You have a corpus, you earn 2%, 5%, 10%. The corpus can as well be spent to alleviate misery. So we said we'll do 30,000. They said 100,000. We had no money. Then they said 500,000. We did it. We raised money. We went to Delhi. We worked on the policy. We got the government of India to change. And the government of India set up the world's largest midday meal program, feeding 190 million children today. So 190 million children get a hot, unlimited meal in India every single day. And still we have malnutrition of 44% in the children 0 to 5 in India. 44% of our children are malnourished in the age of 0 to 4 or 0 to 5, and they'll never grow up to be good individual citizens with the full development of the mind and body. The greatest tragedy on this planet is being played out in India, the country of your birth, and not in Africa, somewhere else. So we did that, and today most children are in school, only 4 or 5 million children out of school, and the program goes well. So we went to 1 billion, and we said we must do 5 million. We're now at 1.3 million. We'll go to 5 million by 2020. We have no corpus. It's a public-private partnership. Government of India pays about 55-60%. We raise the money, and last year we spent 160 crore rupees. It's not funny, 160 crore rupees. Many times we had no money, and one time I remember went and borrowed money from a bank because we had to feed the child, and the child is hungry every single day. And somebody, it's a God's miracle, somebody came and gave us a couple of crores, and we paid back the loan. And money just comes. It's a miracle. We say it's a miracle. There's something divine about the program because we are feeding Krishna's children. They're God's children. They're our children. And we're feeding every single one of them. And we want to feed them till no child goes hungry to bed. So it's a great program, and it has given me so much of meaning because my life has been redefined. My whole life has been redefined. I feel a new energy coming in me every single day, and I feel I have a meaning in my life and a purpose in my life. So it's remade what I did. Then about 4 or 5 years ago, there was a flood in North Karnataka, and the Chief Minister came to Infosys and said, we must build houses in North Karnataka. We said we'll give 30 crore rupees, we'll build some 2,500 houses. And we made the largest donation in the state. So we set up a project group and we started building houses in Gulbarga, and each house cost 1.25 lakh rupees. We built it and we gave it away to all of them. And then we discovered we built toilets in all of them. And these people have never used toilets. Then we read an important fact. 60% of Indians defecate in the open. 60 years after independence, 60% of our fellow human beings, our brethren, defecate in the open. They don't have toilets. Women have to wait till it's dark to go ease themselves. And they defecate in the open like animals. Children go to the fields. It's a matter of shame. And because of that, the water gets poisoned, the water gets spoiled, there's diarrhea, children die before they become 5, women are, enfeebled, and women's health deteriorates, they don't live long, and they die when they're quite young. So we said we're going to build toilets. So now we have a program to build 100,000 toilets. And we talked to the government, we want them to change the policy. The government gives 3,500 rupees, now they're giving 10,000 rupees, and we're starting a national campaign so that in 10 years' time, India will no longer have people who will have to defecate in the open, and every single house will have a toilet as a fundamental right. We said we build toilets. So, I'm saying this because when you look at challenges in a country like India, you need to do an individual initiative, you need to have an organization, you need to have an institution, you need to work at the policy level, you need to work at the government level, expand it so that you solve the problem and the problem is seen receding for a period of time. I just want to end by repeating what I said earlier, that giving is not charity, it's not philanthropy. Giving is an obligation for all of us. And we have to give because we are fortunate. India has 60 billionaires. Collectively, they're worth $250 billion. If they give away 2% of what they earn, of what they have, and that is about maybe $5 billion a year. $5 billion a year can pay for health insurance for 500 million people. 500 million people. can pay for health insurance 500 million people. So it's not that India lacks money. India has money. India has a lot of money. But what India needs is compassion. What India needs is sensitivity. What the world needs today is more compassion, more sensitivity, more soul in human beings. And that's my appeal to you. Whatever you do, try to help. Do it for yourself because you'll feel good about it. Thank you.
I think that all our speakers did a wonderful job about tying together passion and values, and I really